It's easy to react to that with your amygdala blowing and either going into fight or flight mode and wanting to argue or just run away from the problem. But I've got a really nice process that slows you down, gets more curious, and asks more questions into those situations so that you build trust with a client when the moments are going bad as opposed to breaking it.
My special guest today on the Getting the Deal Done podcast is Scott Armstrong. Scott is, we're going to find out, is a guy who loves adventure, who has learned a few lessons in life. We're going to talk about those. And I think very important, how he can help turn mid-level people into rainmakers. And every business needs more rainmakers and more revenue coming in. So welcome, Scott.
Hi, John. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm a fan.
Yeah. All right. So let's start a little bit about your background. How'd you get to where you are now? Business person, advisor, author.
Sure, it really has been an adventure. I'm co-founder and CEO of a marketing services company called Brainrider. So I'm more of an ad guy than a money guy, like lots of people in your audience. But I'm a client guy at heart. And so lots of those are sort of similar. And in running Brainrider over the past decade and more, I've really had to work hard at training our people on building client trust.
Client trust. It's a good statement.
Well, a few years back, we took the firm to market. We were thinking about selling our own firm. And what the M&A guys told us was pretty blunt. Like they liked us, but they were looking for a layer that could run the place without us. And that would add to the valuation. And we were pretty thin there. So I started focusing on, I had great technical folks, great tacticians, great operators, but I really needed to sort of build out their rainmaking skills. And that's become the biggest part of what I do now. When you evaluate deals, when you're looking at the deals, how much is that mid-layer trust skills worth it?
Yeah. You're right. If you have a management team, that you can go on one of your adventures for a month and the business is doing as well as ever, you are more valuable than if you can't go away for a weekend.
And we kind of knew that. Like lots of business owners are told that, but when you get right down to it, what are some of the things you need that management layer to do to replace you? And relationship skills quickly rise to the top in a way that you don't see when you're still around for the team to lean on. If they need someone come in to fix a problem or to talk a client off a ledge or to move a project forward that's stuck. Those are relationship skills, not just operating skills for sure.
Okay. So your company, Brainrider, what did you do? I know you were in the marketing advertising area.
Yeah, so we launched 17 years ago. I've got an amazing business partner who I'm still business partners with. He was a client of mine, and what he was trying to do was to use content, use technology, and combine that with marketing and strategy to sort of build out his go-to-market. And he hired the agency that I was at the time because we did a good job of pitching. But he very quickly came to me and said, "You guys aren't nearly as good as you say you are." I love a client that comes and is that open to me because it lets me understand the problem and fix it. And he was right. So I actually said to him, and I put this story in my book. I said to him, "Look, I don't know if I can fix this firm to be the agency partner you're looking for. Why don't you quit your job and join me and we just go build it together? I don't think it exists."
Okay. And he said yes.
And he said, yes, that was 17 years ago. We've been working primarily with technology companies. And really, any adventure has lots of different stages. So we've been a few different partners for our clients over the past 17 years. Today, we run studios for them at scale. And my management team now does an amazing job of most of that without me. So I'm spending most of my time talking about trust with people who still need it in their business, like the bankers that I worked with on our deal, like my accounting firm, and even our lawyers, all could use a good dose of sort of understanding how to slow down, win the question, instead of trying to win the answer and prove they're smart all the time.
Okay. So what does your company do? You said you have studios.
Yeah, so on the Brainrider side, we execute content, social media campaigns. We build out long form content like white papers, and we handle a lot of digital marketing,
Okay. And primarily for tech companies.
primarily for tech companies. But the venture that I'm really excited right now, I've called Win the Question, and it's really taking it. It was prompted by the learning from my team about building trust skills. I sat down about 2 years ago, tried to write a book, didn't get anywhere, had a lot of good drafts. It's really hard work writing a book. I took some time in January, February of this year and really worked hard at it. And it turned out, there's you and I both have lots of war stories where we've learned stuff along the way. And once I started focusing on those war stories of what I learned, the book almost wrote itself. In fact, the editing that I've needed was to thin the book up, not to expand it at this point.
Okay. So what's the name of the book?
Well, you called it From Becoming a Jerk to Becoming an Ally. The radio friendly version is A to A: How Ambitious Professionals Lose Trust and What They Can Do to Earn It Back. And it's really a lot of the mistakes I've made along the way, along with the lessons in a way that people could apply to their own teams.
Okay. What are some of those lessons?
There's one insight and four skills that the book focuses on. And the to learn the insight, I had to get called an a-hole by my president, Kerry McElwain, who I adore, at Y&R Chicago. I had to lose my job and get unemployed for a year with no one really wanting to hire me before I reset myself from a Madison Avenue madman style jerk into somebody who really does love working with and helping clients. And that insight is pretty straightforward once you sit down and look at it. It's not all about you. It wasn't all about me. But it turned out every time I went into pitch or into a client conversation, I just sort of jumped into providing the answer instead of slowing down and working with the client to better understand the problem, explore solutions, and add value to the conversation instead of just try to jump in and own it. So that's the insight. That's a problem I think lots of ambitious professionals have, and hopefully they don't have to go through the same journey that I did to see it in themselves. And then the four skills I developed along the way, the first is really ask, don't just answer.
But
The
asking
second,
questions is the key, isn't it?
it is, yeah, slowing and genuinely being curious about your client and their business. And don't just ask questions where you already know the answer. Ask questions for discovery, which takes me to the second skill, which is listen to learn, not just to reload with another one of your answers.
Okay.
And the third one is how do you frame up what you're seeing, what you're discovering with your client, not just for your client? So, how do you work collaboratively with your client to sort of identify the problem? I don't know if it's true or not, but there's a story about Einstein who was asked to save the world. He was given an hour to do it. And he slowed down and said, well, if I've got an hour to do it, I'd rather spend 55 minutes on understanding what the real problem is before I focus my last 5 minutes on what the solution will be. And I think that's very true when you're working with clients. Our clients are smart. They often already know the answer. There's other parts of the equation that they're trying to figure out. And then the last skill set is what do you do when it goes wrong? What do you do when your client, like Nolan did to me, says, look, you're really not delivering what I need, or I don't like your team, or I'm going to fire you and go with someone else. It's easy to react to that with your amygdala blowing and either going into fight or flight mode and wanting to argue or just run away from the problem. But there's actually, I've got a really nice process that slows you down, gets more curious, and asks more questions into those situations so that you build trust with a client when the moments are going bad as opposed to breaking it. So, those are the four skills in the book, and those are the four skills I talk about in my training.
Yeah, and if you go back to before the four skills, and what I've seen with some people is they have a solution that they try to fit to every problem. In other words, I have the 7 steps to improve operational efficiency or increase revenue or yeah, build teamwork. And it doesn't matter what the situation is. Let's use our 7 steps because I created those 7 steps.
Right. Yeah, it's so intoxicating to come up with some thinking. And it's sometimes called the curse of knowledge. Once you've figured something out, once you know it, it actually becomes really hard to slow down and understand it from anyone else's perspective.
Yeah.
And so if you develop the 7 steps, it's so easy to see everything as a 7 steps problem with a 7 steps solution. But it might not fit, or even if it does fit, your client might not really be understanding what you're trying to do with them.
Yeah. Well, it's like the old saying, if all you have is a hammer, every problem is a nail.
Oh, right. I love, and in your business, you must see that a lot because when you're trying to, what we learned is trying to sell our company was an incredibly emotional adventure. When people are valuing your life's work, it's really easy to stop listening well to the advisors that are talking to you. So when the accountant said, well, we should really restructure the tax side, and the lawyer said we needed some new incorporations to make the business, more clear, and everybody was talking about elements that the business was missing or needed to be developed before we were saleable, like the mid-management team that I was talking about earlier. It just becomes quickly overwhelming, even though my partner and I are smart guys and good business people, but the deal is not the area that we normally play. So that hammer becomes a weapon, not just a tool if the M&I guy or if your marketing person isn't wielding it well.
Yeah, that's very true. And there's a lot out there about asking questions and, is it the book, The Power of Why or whatever it's called. I'm can drive my family nuts because they will say, I'll say, we'll be talking about something and they'll give an answer and I'll say, why?
Oh, I love it.
And then they said, well, I don't know. I said, if you had said the opposite, I'd say, why?
Yeah. Yeah. And your business conversations react the same way?
And they can because business owners can get stubborn. We've done it this way for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the way we do it. I will say we have one client right now that the clients are well, there are two of them, and their average age is 70, and they just say, look, we know there are people out there who will buy our business and bring more modern technology and systems and increase productivity. At our point in our careers, we don't want to do it, but they're very open about that instead
Mm-hmm.
of there can't be a better way to do it. I call it a lot of times I call it founder-itis. Yeah, the founder has a way of doing things, and if anyone wants to do it differently,
Right.
they're wrong.
And so what's your strategy? Are you going to try to open their minds a little bit or just deal with the situation where they're like, this is the way we want to sell it. This is the business we've got.
Well, we have, if they don't want to change, you have to sell it based on what it is. And sometimes you can say, look, it's going to take at least a year to get someone in these positions, and yes, it is a cost, but if it works out, but no, I want to sell now. I'd
Right.
sooner sell now for X than get 25% more than X in a year. And it
How
depends on what
much
their mental state is
how often do you turn business down because you don't think you can help them?
regularly. Uh, and you will go back to your relationships. We have a prospective client. It's a referral from someone at my law firm, my favorite law firm to refer to, and I we don't think we want to work with them. The minority owner who's really driving the let's sell it process is I called the lawyer and I said he comes across as a know-it-all. And the
Mm.
lawyer said, "Yeah, I can see how you came to that conclusion." And that's not who we want to work with. We don't want to work with the client that thinks they're so smart about everything because they're good in their business. They're going to tell us what to do.
It's crazy how much know-it-all-itis has infected the world. And I've got a theory it starts right from when you went to school and you were rewarded for putting your hand up and knowing the answer and proving you had the answer and competing with everyone else on how right your answer is versus theirs. If I could change one thing about the world, I would really help, especially professionals. Like, who has the most know-it-all itis are lawyers and accountants and ad guys and sometimes even M&A guys, who, the being a professional sort of arms you with that. And the rainmakers like you know how to slow down and ask why. It's the mid-level that I see know-it-all itis with so much that I'm on a mission, John, to change the world so there's less know-it-all itis.
Yeah, the other one is doctors. Not all doctors, but
Mm.
some. I had a we have a had a friend. He was a doctor, and he used to give me his medical economics magazines after
Right.
he was done with them. And what I picked up in it was half the magazine, if I'm recalling it right, half the magazine was always about doctors who made bad investment decisions and bad business decisions. I'm a doctor. I can cure this or that or the other thing, and they'd always get into stupid investments and poor money management. The theme of the magazine was like that all the time.
Yeah, and it's so hard to get people to see their own know-it-all itis, or what I would call self-orientation. I ran a training workshop for an investment bank the other day, and you don't want to come in and say, "Look, you're all self-oriented," because that puts the room against you right away. So I used the same example you just talked about. I said, "Tell me a story about your doctor. How good are they at listening to you? Do you like your doctor? Yes or no? And if not, why not?" And they told stories about know it all itis. And then I was able to get them to slowly see, hey, I might suffer from of these same things professionally myself.
Yeah, it's common, and you're when you talk about your brain writer and how you built a management team and got them to rainmake, that is shifting your focus from what I can do to what we can do.
Yeah, exactly. And you can't just model that behavior. You kind of have to actively coach the tier of management you've got that are really good at what they do but are not yet rainmakers. There's the stats are, and your evidence of this, I think the stats are that high performers in professional services talk about 40% during their client conversations, and low performers talk about 65% during their client conversation. So low performers do more talking, high performers do more listening. Apply that to the rainmaker skill. What rainmakers do is they slow down and ask why. That's why you're the rainmaker.
Yeah, and it's better to get a quick no than a drawn out anything. And if it takes that much effort, no, I'm not talking about selling a. We have a client that makes components for engines, and yes, it's a long sales cycle because you have to engineer it throughout. But if it's not something like that, do you really want someone who's taking 4 months to make a fairly simple decision? Because it's gonna come back and haunt you.
Yeah, that's right. And when your firm is growing and you're adding members to the team, it's easy for you to help a client move forward quickly. It's a lot harder for them because they just have more doubts and uncertainty and really all about me-itis going on. And so coaching them to get to the Rainmaker stage is something that I try to help firms do. The thing I would get your audience to do is to listen into the calls of your best performers and see how many questions they ask before they move from discovery or asking why into saying why us or trying to sell.
Yeah.
Eventually you have to sell. Eventually you have to say why us, but you want to discover a lot before you get there. And most professionals are there by their second or third question.
Yeah. Well, it goes with, I got a book on my desk by Daniel Pink, To Sell is Human. That
Mm,
I don't know if you've read the book or familiar with it, but for the audience, it's everyone is selling. Teachers are selling to their students and vice versa. Parents are selling to kids and kids are selling to their parents. And they can use the most manipulative sales techniques that are out there, those kids. And, we're all doing something. When you're dating someone, you're trying to sell yourself.
yeah, that's right. I think selling is a beautiful art. I think selling badly is the problem,
Yeah. Well,
right?
everyone still has the image of the 1950s, 60s car salesperson. Uh, I'm not letting this person off the lot till they buy a clunker.
That's right. And in the knowledge businesses that I work with, the product is so intangible. It really only gets proven once the work is in the middle of being done or finished. And so, we have quality or trust us don't really work to help move the sale forward with much confidence.
Yeah. Okay. So
Like
this
when
is
you were,
interesting. So let's next topic is wrote in our my notes when we had talked a while back what adventure does to business performance. So let's talk about adventure and performance.
oh, that's one of my favorite topics. So I love adventure, and the two areas other than my own business, which I've seen as an adventure, to be honest, um, that I love to do are both backcountry skiing, so deep into the mountains, and adventure motorcycle riding. Like my last big trip was Vegas to Cabo through Death Valley and the Mojave and back again. And I usually do those adventures on a team. So I have a group of buddies that I ride with and my life partner. And in order to make them successful, you can't, it's not just the plan, it's what happens when you're in the middle of doing the adventure that makes the difference. And it's not an adventure if everything goes right. In other words, we anticipate things going wrong that we can't even guess what they'll be. How you work together as a team, how do you communicate, and how you continue to keep trust while you're in the middle of the Mojave backcountry and someone's bike is broken down. Those are business skills, not just life skills.
Okay, so are you saying you would encourage people to do adventurous things and it will help their business?
I think it'll help their mindset. When we were doing our pre-call, you talked a bit about the charitable work that you do. And so you're delivering computers to needy skills. What drives that for you? And more importantly, what do you learn through that process?
Well, what drives it is we know we're doing good and making a difference in people's lives
Yeah.
and individuals' lives. When a lot of times you want to make a difference in lives in that place. Well, if you can make a difference in an individual's life, if in our case by donating technology, if we can make teachers more effective, if we can make students learn better, and by the way, we don't push the computer in the classroom as the all all ending thing. It has to be done in conjunction with reading, writing, numbers, uh, you know, but the kids these days would sooner learn something on a screen than on a 3 by 5 blackboard. And if you can keep their attention, then you can move on to other things. So it's been very rewarding. And what do you learn? You learn, and we've done this in many years in Antigua, but a couple other countries prior. I think in simple terms, people are people.
Oh,
No
yeah.
matter where you are, people are
Hmm.
people. They have the same interests. They care about their economic well-being. They care about their families, uh, and a lot of them also care about giving back to their community.
Hmm.
So, you also deal with the same stuff you could deal with in any business or family here. You can have drama.
Right.
We have to deal with government people. We've seen government people, a couple in particular, be very protective of their turf. In other words, if we let these people in Rotary and come in and do all this, what does that mean for us? Well, what it should mean is you're coordinating this project and making a big difference instead of, well, if I'm not doing it myself, I'm in trouble.
I love projects where you're both giving back and using the skills that you've built. And I like involving juniors in that process with me because they're seeing those skills in action in different circumstances, which just provokes different
Yeah.
learning. Who does anyone from your company join you on that mission, on those
My
missions?
company's small, so it's my daughter and me. No, we have a team that goes, and we do. We talked about, or I talked about the students in Antigua where they learn, but we also take usually 14 high school students who do the tech. I'll call it the affectionately call it the grunt work. They
Yeah.
they set up Wi-Fi networks and fix Wi-Fi networks and upgrade them and help deliver computers, which I will tell you is one of the most heartwarming things when you you
Right.
give a teacher or a principal and say, I have a fairly new or a new computer, sometimes new, sometimes fairly new, for every teacher in your school, and they cry and they do a prayer thing and they just are so overwhelmed. One principal said, I was about to go online to find a new computer because mine is broken. And that's it's pretty heartwarming. But we didn't mention this, but the students we bring, they get life lessons more than the recipients of what we're doing.
Mhm.
They get to see a different culture, and they get to learn what it's like to help. They get to meet friends. We've had one that her host family, the daughter was about the same age, who came to her wedding many years later. And
Amazing.
so you make friendships and you learn and you see that, again, like I started out, people are people.
And when I hear you tell that story, I'm hearing an amazing adventure for everybody who's participating.
You're right.
And I think there's always learning in an adventure, and there's learning that you can apply to your life and your relationships. People are people is a great example. Patience with bureaucracy is something that I could probably use in my life because I'm not very patient with no's. Those are all muscles that you've developed and are flexing. And I think the part that's really warming my heart about your story is you're doing a pretty good job of extending that to a broader group of people outside of your firm. I love that. So that's what I see about adventuring and business skills. For me, the much of them are around trust and relationship skills, just in different contexts. Decision making skills. But really, I think everybody should be seeing the adventure in their life because it fuels your energy for everything else and it fuels your learning.
I agree. So, Scott, we've been at it a while. Time has flown by. Any final
Wow.
thoughts?
Well, first, I love a conversation with you. I would do it more often. So thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome.
If anybody wants to learn more about trust training for the professionals on their teams or the clients they're working with, I'd be happy to share that information. My book comes out this fall, but I'm not trying to make money off the book. I'm trying to change the world. So I'd be happy to give away a few free chapters in advance.
And how do
I
people reach you?
right now, LinkedIn is a great way to do it. So if they search Scott at Win the Question on LinkedIn, sorry, Scott Armstrong at Win the Question on LinkedIn, then they'll find me. And I'm happy to engage with people in one-on-one conversations. I'd like to listen first per my skill set and really understand where trust is missing amongst your team. And then I'll just share some of the thinking and you can see what you can do with it.
Okay. Do you want to share a website or just use LinkedIn?
I've got a website up. It's called winthequestion.com.
Okay.
And there's even a 90-second client skills test that you can send to your team and see how they do on their own skills assessment for building trust.
Okay. Winthequestion.com.
That's me.
And I think that might be better because I can imagine there's a lot of Scott Armstrongs on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think you're right. There's only one win the question. That's for sure, John.
Yeah. Well, Scott, this has been really an enjoyable conversation. And I really thank you for being a guest here on the Getting the Deal Done podcast. And I wish you well with your book coming out. And it's the same as with my books. I don't expect to make money on the sale of the books, but they're a proof of expertise.
Thanks for having me on, John. I really had
Yeah, you
fun.
are very welcome. I appreciate you as a guest.